Look, the narrative that Aston Martin was just, quietly taking their time in Silverstone.
Right, playing the long game.
Yeah, exactly. Like they were carefully developing their 2026 car while just willfully ignoring the early season. I mean, that is a complete myth.
Oh, a total fabrication.
We need to shatter that right now.
Yeah,
because the reality is they were like millimeters away from a sweeping organizational disaster.
Absolutely.
That base AMR 26, I mean, it wasn't just a slow car. It was an overweight, structurally compromised failure of an engineering project.
Yeah, it was bad.
But what we saw unfold in Hungary, well, look, I'm calling it right now.
Sure.
Aston Martin rolling out the AMR 26B is the single greatest mid-season technical rescue mission in modern Formula One history.
Okay, whoa, stop right there. I have to step in and push back on that immediately.
Why? You saw the data.
Because that is a completely romanticized, borderline delusional view of what we just watched.
Delusional, come on.
It is. There was no miracle here. What you saw in Hungary wasn't some heroic rescue mission. It was the inevitable, highly predictable consequence of Adrian Newey being legally forced to sit on his hands until April.
Well, the gardening leave.
Red Bull's gardening leave absolutely suffocated Aston Martin. I mean, you cannot lose 4 crucial months of wind tunnel time at the start of a totally new regulatory era and expect to survive.
Okay, but before we get into that massive timeline deficit, let's set the table for you listening right now. Today on this deep dive, we are unpacking a massive stack of paddock data, leaked telemetry out of Japan, and some highly conflicting contract numbers to answer one mission-critical question.
Is Aston Martin on the verge of a masterstroke that redefines the grid, or are we just watching a multi-million-euro collapse?
Exactly. So looking at those numbers, you're saying the B-spec car was just them, finally starting their season?
Precisely. I mean, while the rest of the grid was running full tilt in January, iterating their designs, Newey didn't even get to put a physical scale model in Aston's brand new wind tunnel until, April?
Right.
They had no choice but to launch a B-spec car. When he finally walked through the doors at Silverstone, he took one look at the aero concepts the baseline team was working on and he told the technical department to drop everything.
He had to scrap the entire original concept.
Completely. They deliberately sacrificed the first half of the season just to build a foundation that wouldn't entirely embarrass them. I mean, you don't put a Band-Aid on a broken leg, right?
No, you take a saw to it. And if you look at the telemetry data we have right in front of us, you can actually see exactly where they were bleeding time. And it wasn't just downforce.
No, not at all.
We talk so much about aerodynamics, but the biggest initial victory of this AMR 26B wasn't aero. It was the mass.
Yeah, the weight. People are obsessing over the new wing profiles, which, fine. But the base car was carrying around the equivalent of 3 bowling balls of dead weight in the chassis.
Which is insane at this level.
We are talking about severe excess mass costing the team up to 0.4 of a second per lap.
4/10.
And when you have unsprung weight like that, it destroys your tire life.
Right.
The car physically cannot rotate through high-speed corners without sliding and overheating the rubber.
Right, because of the inertia.
Exactly, 3 to 4/10 just carrying dead weight around the track.
Yeah.
So before you even look at aerodynamic efficiency, shedding that mass was step 1.
Because only once they hit that minimum weight limit could Newey's actual aero philosophy start to work.
Yeah.
And if you examine the Hungarian upgrade, that philosophy is ruthless. I mean, look at the new sidepod inlets.
They're wild.
The entire grid is practically copying each other right now, converging on these really similar homogenized designs because computational fluid dynamics software tends to lead engineers to the same safe conclusions.
The software always finds the safest route.
Right. But Newey refuses to conform. He stays fiercely faithful to his own microaerodynamic principles. These unique, high-position sidepod inlets, literally no one else is doing this.
And there's a specific, highly technical reason for that divergence. Look, Newey understands that you don't just design a piece of carbon fiber in isolation.
Right.
Every single detail on that AMR 26B was changed in Hungary to work as a cohesive unit. The mirror supports, the deflectors underneath the chassis, all of it. But the absolute masterstroke and the real reason those high side pods actually function is what they did with the wakeboards.
Which, for anyone who hasn't been poring over the 2026 technical regulations, are those vertical fins placed just ahead of the side pods.
Exactly. And this is crucial for managing the inboard airflow, or, what aerodynamicists call inwash.
Right.
Under the old regulations, teams used outwash. They would take that dirty, turbulent air spinning off the front tires and aggressively push it out and away from the car.
But the FIA banned that to improve close racing with the new rules.
Exactly. Now you have to manage that dirty air internally.
You essentially have to swallow the turbulence.
Precisely. And these entirely redesigned wakeboards act like a highly engineered snowplow.
A snowplow, I like that.
They capture that turbulent weight from the tires, divide it, smooth it out into laminated airflow, and throw it cleanly backward, totally out of the way of the critical floor area.
Wow.
They are essentially sealing the floor of the car without using physical skirts. And if you don't get this right, if that snowplow fails, that dirty tire wake spills underneath the car, floods the rear diffuser, and completely destroys your high and low pressure zones.
And you lose all your cornering grip in an instant.
Instantly, you're in the wall.
But sealing that floor with wakeboards is completely useless if the air hitting them is already turbulent before it even arrives, right?
That's the catch.
So to get that clean air backward, NEWEY had to fundamentally change the physical shape of the front suspension. The upper wishbone realignment on the AMR 26B is staggering.
It really is.
Those carbon fiber wishbones are incredibly aggressive, they are insanely thin, and they are designed to be aerodynamically invisible, so they don't disrupt the airflow heading to those wakeboards.
Yeah, but there is a massive, very dangerous cost to that aggression. You look at those thin wishbones and see aerodynamic brilliance. I look at them and see a glaring liability if the material science isn't executed perfectly.
Because of the stress loads.
Exactly. Let me remind you of a very visceral memory from earlier this year. Lance Stroll literally shattering the rear suspension.
Oh, man, yeah.
Just completely snapping it under a totally normal cornering load.
That was shocking to watch. The car just collapsed on itself entering the apex.
Because that is the reality of working with Adrian Newey. He will push the material engineers right to the edge of catastrophe.
Right.
He demands the maximum possible structural rigidity with the absolute bare minimum amount of material to save weight and reduce drag. And when you operate on that razor's edge, things break.
Which is why they had to beef it up in Hungary.
Exactly. Alongside all these aero upgrades, they had to completely redesign the rear suspension geometry. They raised it over the gearbox and, crucially, added vital structural reinforcement so it wouldn't shatter again.
Well, the reinforcements worked. Because you look at how that chassis handled the mid-speed corners in Hungary, and I am telling you, it is now easily the best in the midfield. Nobody else is developing at this trajectory.
The chassis is brilliant, yes. I will concede that point. It is a masterpiece of technical recovery. But it is masking a fatal flaw.
You mean the engine?
Yes. You can have the greatest aero package in the history of the sport, but if you are carrying those structural reinforcements, you need power to push it. If that beautiful chassis is hiding a fundamental disaster underneath the engine cover, it is entirely useless.
Which brings us to the elephant in the room. The nightmare that is Honda's 2026 power unit.
It is a tractor engine. Let's not mince words here.
I mean, it's worse than a tractor engine because
Right.
at least a tractor engine is reliable.
Fair point.
I am still in sheer disbelief at how Honda managed to bungle this so badly.
Yeah.
Aston Martin knew in November 2025 that Honda was missing their dynamometer targets. By January 2026, it wasn't just a missed target, it was a full-blown crisis.
Yeah.
They rolled up to preseason testing. And this engine was effectively broken out of the box. How does a manufacturer with Honda's pedigree get it this wrong?
Hubris.
Yeah.
Pure hubris. They vastly underestimated the complexity of the 2026 regulations. They just assumed they could coast on the incredible success they had building championship engines for Red Bull.
So they didn't put their best people on it.
Exactly. They assigned the initial 2026 design phases to younger, inexperienced engineers. They didn't bring the heavy hitters, the veteran minds from their Sakura facility who actually built those title-winning power units.
Wow.
And the result, an engine suffering from catastrophic electrical deficiencies in the hybrid deployment and destructive harmonic vibrations.
Okay, let's break down those vibrations for a second, because we aren't just talking about a bumpy ride for the driver. The engine was literally shaking the car apart.
Right, this is harmonic resonance. It's like taking a tuning fork and hitting the exact wrong pitch until a glass shatters. When the internal combustion engine's firing sequence perfectly matches the natural frequency of the chassis mounts, it creates this violent feedback loop. It was shaking the telemetry sensors off their mounts.
You cannot tune a highly sensitive aerodynamic chassis when the engine block is vibrating the floor to pieces.
You literally can't. And when it wasn't shaking, it wasn't delivering power anyway. The electrical deployment was a total mess.
Yeah, the clipping was severe.
Yeah.
For those who aren't engineers, explain the clipping, because that is where they were bleeding time on the straights.
Right, so in modern F1, the hybrid system, the MGUK, deploys electrical energy alongside the combustion engine to give you top speed.
Yep.
But if your system is inefficient at harvesting energy under braking, you run out of electrical juice before you reach the end of the straight. That's called clipping.
The battery just dies early.
Exactly. And suddenly you are relying purely on a weak internal combustion engine while your rivals are still deploying full hybrid power. You become a sitting duck. But here is the psychological reality of Honda as an organization. We have seen this exact movie before. Look at the McLaren-Honda days a decade ago.
Oh, don't remind them.
Honda requires public humiliation to wake up. They need their pride shattered on a global stage before they activate emergency protocols. And that public shaming in the first half of this year did exactly that. They are now desperately recalling all their veteran engineers to salvage this project.
Which leads us directly to the tension surrounding the upcoming Zandvoort upgrade. Honda is burning their 2 available ADU tokens right here, right now. And for you at home, ADU tokens are Aerodynamic Development Unit tokens. It's essentially the FIA's strict regulatory currency system for allowing mid-season power unit and aero upgrades.
You only get a highly limited number.
Right. Once you spend them, you can't go back, you can't try again. You are locked in. And I'm going to make a bold claim right now. Honda is doomed for the rest of this year.
Really?
Yes. You cannot rewrite electrical mapping and cure structural harmonic vibrations in a single mid-season token spend. It's too massive of a mechanical overhaul.
Well, I am fiercely pushing back on that assumption. You are completely ignoring the actual dyno data leaking out of Sakura right now. The Zandvoort update isn't a minor tweak. It is a total ground-up overhaul of the hybrid system.
Okay.
They are targeting a massive 30 to 35 horsepower gain.
35 horsepower mid-season in the budget cap era. Come on.
Yes. Do the math on the physics here. In modern Formula One, 35 horsepower equates to roughly 0.5 of a second per lap, half a second.
That's enormous.
They are entirely fixing the electrical deployment mapping so they stop clipping on the straights. They are cutting internal weight in the battery store, and they have reportedly redesigned the mounting points to cure the harmonic vibrations.
So they claim.
You look at that 40 to 50 horsepower deficit they had at the start of the year. This upgrade wipes out the vast majority of it in one swing.
Half a second from the engine alone. If that data correlates to the track, that changes the entire complexion of the grid.
Yeah.
Because it's not just raw speed on a stopwatch.
Exactly. It's about raceability. Right now, Aston Martin is bleeding out in race trim. If Honda delivers this 35 horsepower in Zandvoort, it is the difference between getting swallowed alive in a DRS train and actually brawling with Audi and Racing Bulls for Q2 appearances.
And it creates a compounding effect for the aerodynamics, doesn't it?
Huge compounding effect. Right now, NEWEY is forced to run these compromised, ultra-low drag rear wings just so the car can survive the straights with a weak engine.
Right.
If Honda gives them power, NEWEY can finally bolt on the optimal high downforce wings the chassis was actually designed for in the first place.
Okay, let's connect these threads. We have a massive aerodynamic leap from NEWEY and an impending make-or-break engine fix from Honda. And there is one person watching this telemetry closer than anyone else on the planet, Fernando Alonso.
Oh, he smells blood in the water.
His contract extension is imminent following this summer break.
Yeah.
But this is where the data we're seeing aggressively conflicts. We have Spanish sources insisting that Alonso is demanding a 1+1 deal covering 2027 to 2028, and that it is essentially a signed, sealed, done deal.
Right.
But then you look at the British paddock insiders, and they're insisting Lawrence Stroll is furious at the financial demands and is actively calling his bluff.
Well, because the numbers are staggering.
He wants a raise. Alonso wants to go from his current 30 million euros a year to 40 million euros a year.
40 million.
40 million euros. That makes him one of the highest paid drivers in the history of the sport. And he is going to be well over 40 years old. I mean, he will be pushing 45 by the end of that contract.
And if you look at the leverage he holds right now, he is worth every single penny.
I have to push back hard on this. Are you seriously arguing for this? You do not pay 40 million euros to a 45-year-old driver.
Yes, you do.
The reflexes, the physical stamina required to sustain high-G cornering over a 2-hour race.
Yeah.
I mean, human biology dictates a decline. You're telling me there isn't a hungry 22-year-old in F2 right now who could drive NEWEY'S highly efficient chassis for a tenth of that price.
A 22-year-old might have the reflexes, sure, but they do not have the processing power. You pay Alonso $40 million because he is a supercomputer in the cockpit.
A supercomputer.
Look at what he has been doing this year. He has been driving an overweight, vibrating mess of a car. He flat out refuses to do the agonizing, painful, dirty work of developing a back marker for 2 years, taking all the hits, testing all the experimental parts, just to hand a championship-winning AMR 27 over to some rookie in 2027.
Well, nobody wants to do that.
Right. He wants to sow the seeds, but he demands to hark at the crop.
Okay, the intent makes sense, but how does he justify the price tag to the board?
Calibration. Aston Martin desperately needs Fernando Alonso's brain. You think a rookie from F2 is going to be able to calibrate Adrian Newey's incredibly complex, razor-thin suspension geometry? You think a 22-year-old is going to give Honda the microscopic, corner-by-corner feedback required to perfectly map a totally new electrical deployment system? No.
He does have the experience.
Alonso is the ultimate calibrator. If you are Lawrence Stroll, you have invested hundreds of millions in a new factory, a new wind tunnel, Adrian Newey's salary, and a Works Honda deal. You cannot afford to put a cheap, inexperienced driver in that seat. You need the 45-year-old maestro to tie it all together, and Alonso knows it.
Well, his extortion tactics are certainly something to behold. Have you seen the sudden rumors swirling in the French press about a move back to Alpine?
Oh, it is masterful negotiation. Flavio Briatore is in the background pulling the strings, engineering these Alpine rumors to create a totally artificial state of panic inside the Silverstone boardroom.
It's just a threat.
It is a brilliant, highly visible threat. The message is clear. Pay me the $40 million, give me the 2 years, or I take my development feedback and my telemetry calibration skills to Enstone, and you can figure out Honda's engine mapping on your own.
Man, so this entire multi-hundred-million-euro project all comes down to a razor's edge this weekend. The tension is just suffocating.
It truly is, because if Honda's token upgrade fails in Zandvoort, if they don't find that 35 horsepower, the whole Newey master plan stalls out.
Right.
The wakeboards and the thin suspension won't matter because they'll still be clipping on the streets. And if that happens, Alonso might just walk away out of sheer frustration, taking his calibration skills with him.
But think about the flip side. If they find those 5/10ths, if the internal combustion engine stops vibrating the chassis to pieces, and Newey's wakeboards are sealing the floor the exact way the wind tunnel correlation says they should, Aston Martin isn't just saving their 2026 season.
No.
They were laying the exact concrete foundation for a 2027 World Championship title fight.
That is the billion-dollar gamble playing out right now. It is a highly precarious house of cards.
Which leaves you, listening right now, with a brutal boardroom dilemma.
Yeah.
I want you to really think about the mechanics and the economics we just unpacked.
Yeah, put yourself in their shoes.
If you are sitting at the head of the table at Aston Martin today, do you grit your teeth, swallow your pride, and write a €40 million blank check to a 45-year-old Fernando Alonso? Or do you gamble that Adrian Newey's aerodynamic chassis and Honda's new hybrid system will be so dominant by 2027 that you can win the championship with a driver half his age and a fraction of his price?
Good luck making that call without losing your job by Christmas.
Exactly. Look, if you want to survive the absolute chaos of this F1 season, you need to be plugged into the data and the politics. Go follow Paddock Notes right now on YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok. We are dissecting every single telemetry lie, every technical upgrade, and every backdoor contract negotiation the second it hits the paddock.
Yeah, you need to hit subscribe right now. Unless, of course, you genuinely want your Formula One technical knowledge to be as painfully slow as the base model AMR 26. Your call entirely.
Brutal. See you next time.